None of these things individually actually felt like a reason to leave. They all just felt really minor, like stuff that we could just work through. But together, they start to reveal a larger pattern of behavior where there's lack of accountability. The other person in the relationship isn't willing to work on themselves or change. And so the other person feels like they have to just shrink themselves down in order to keep the peace. So here are the 7 red flags that I missed in early dating. And honestly, this list could go on, but I'm only gonna stick to 7 for today's video. So number 1, he shared personal information about me with his family before I had even met them. He wanted me to come over to dinner at his family's house, and it felt like he had already told my story for me on my behalf before I even got a chance to tell it myself. So like, for example, my parents' divorce, being raised in a divided household, that kind of became my identity through his parents' eyes. It felt like from the moment I met them, they were just looking at me through this lens of pity, like, oh, this poor girl, nobody loves her, she comes from a dysfunctional household. And it's like, no, I actually have plenty of people in my life that love me and care about me, and my family loves me very much, and I don't need anyone's pity. But it just felt like this role that was kind of being assigned to me from day one, which is really weird. So yeah, I really didn't like that, feeling like I didn't even get the opportunity to meet his family and show up as myself, but they had already decided who I was pretty much before I had even met them. So that's definitely a red flag. Number 2, he framed my boundaries as being too much. So for example, just me asking for privacy or like basic respect, like not enjoying him looking over my shoulder while I'm texting or while I'm typing something out. And it's not like I have something to hide, it's more just, hey, I come from kind of helicopter-y parents, and it just makes me uncomfortable when people invade my personal space and like reading my phone texts while I'm typing them. So could you maybe not do that? And he would get defensive and say, oh, well, I'm just, taking an interest in your life. Am I not supposed to do that? And so my boundaries were somehow framed as like an attack on him, and it became more of a debate or an argument rather than just, okay, I won't do that, and then just moving on. So very, very early on, even like the smallest little boundary of like, hey, could you maybe not do that? It just makes me feel, uncomfortable, or it feels a little invasive. Could you please not do that? He would react negatively. So very early on, it started off as you're not allowed to have boundaries. 3, he needed constant access to me. So again, in the beginning, it felt like finally a guy who's showing up and they're giving effort and they're planning dates, he's initiating communication. I was tired of being ghosted while early dating in the past, and this is somebody who actually is taking a genuine interest in me, and he's reaching out, he's communicating. All these things looked like green flags to me. But again, it was like if I didn't respond right away, or if I already had made plans that weekend to hang out with friends, then suddenly he feels abandoned if I can't spend every minute with him. Another red flag is when we did have a disagreement, it would always turn into me being the problem. So just the lack of accountability early on, like he could never muster an apology and say, I'm sorry that I hurt you, or I'm sorry that I did that. Like it was always, well, what about what you did? Anytime I brought something up where I said, hey, this was, you were being a little bit condescending in that conversation, or I felt disrespected, could you maybe frame it a different way? It was almost like he had a list of things ready to go, like grievances, things that I had done to him that he was just waiting to bring up. So like anytime I would share what's on my heart, he would have a list of things ready to go and say, well, what about what you did? You did this, this, and this. So it just kind of became like a back and forth, rather than just me sharing, hey, I didn't really enjoy that, and then him saying, okay, I'm sorry, I won't do that again, and then just moving on. Like, that's how healthy people resolve conflict. It doesn't need to be an argument every single time. Another one is that he moved really fast emotionally. Like, I remember he was really eager to push for a label and basically lock it down. He wanted me to meet his family very early on, and I remember this making me feel really uncomfortable. Like, it was moving too fast. Like, I didn't initially feel entirely comfortable with meeting his family that early, but again, I wasn't the best at listening to my gut, and I didn't really know how to say no at the time, so I agreed to it, because again, I didn't want to say, well, no, I don't want to meet your family, like, that's weird, so I went along with it and went to dinner, but it just felt like he was just trying to move things along more quickly than I was comfortable with. So that's probably my number one piece of advice for anyone who's starting off dating a new person, to just really slow things down in the beginning, because it really gives you an opportunity to check in with yourself and kind of feel the situation out, decide if you really like this person, if there's somebody that you really want to continue being with. But when somebody is just trying to rush into things and put a label and just get to that next level of the relationship really quickly, to me, that's a red flag. He also made me feel like I needed to be fixed. So, like, for example, his family, he's got a really big family, and they always get together on the holidays, and they do like a really big family get together with like 50 people. And that's great. I have nothing against that. I mean, good for them. I'm happy for them, and they can spend their family time however they like. But for me, coming from a smaller family where we don't really get together like that in huge gatherings, it would just make me a little bit uncomfortable. Like, I'm just a little bit maybe socially awkward or whatever. And I tend to prefer like one-on-one communication or just having my alone time. He made it seem like he just really needed to bring me out of my shell more, and like I'm just being shy, or he just needs to show me like the true meaning of the holidays and, you know, what real family time and love really looks like. And it just, again, kind of goes back to the message of me being broken or something about me being inherently wrong. Like, he needed to fix it. I mean, in reality, it's like, no, this is just how I am. I'm just a little bit more introverted, and that's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. So it just always felt like him and his family, they were always just trying to change me or kind of get me to fit into this mold that they had decided I belonged in. So that started off pretty early on in the relationship. And the last red flag that I will talk about in this video is that my discomfort could always be explained away, right? So going back to me setting a boundary or me being uncomfortable with something, it was always a me problem. It was always something that was wrong with me or that I needed to change about myself. And me being an introspective person, I just thought, well, maybe he's right, you know, maybe if I just read another self-help book or go to therapy or, you know, work on my inner child, you know, like get better at communicating, then we can kind of work through this. But the question I should ask is he doing any of that work? Like, is he putting in the effort to really understand me better or kind of learn more about what healthy relationships look like? Because if only one person is doing all of the emotional labor for both people in that relationship, that is not a healthy relationship, and I know that now. And I want to really emphasize that none of these things individually actually felt like a reason to leave. They all just felt really minor, like stuff that we could just work through, but together they start to reveal a larger pattern of behavior where there's lack of accountability. The other person in the relationship isn't willing to work on themselves or change, and so the other person feels like they have to just shrink themselves down in order to keep the peace. So what ended up happening over the course of the relationship was I would just silence my needs down because I didn't want there to be conflict, and that's really unhealthy because you start to lose yourself in these relationships. So my goal with this video is really just to put it out there that there are really subtle forms of emotional manipulation that are not as easy to detect, especially in early dating, as we'd like them to be. Sometimes there are overt signals of abuse and dysfunction in a relationship, but sometimes there's really, really subtle signs that are very easy to miss and easy to explain away if you're a people pleaser like me. Because if you're someone who is used to overriding your own needs, usually these red flags don't really look like danger. They just look like something that you need to work through, right? It feels like, well, every relationship has their problems and nobody's perfect. And so you just start to explain the other person's behavior away. But if you're doing that really early in the relationship, that's a red flag. Because people, when they're first starting off dating a new person, that's them on their best behavior. So if you think about it, if you're getting the best version of that person and you're already having to make excuses for them, that's probably not your person. If you have to explain your boundaries more than once, you're not being misunderstood. You're being ignored. And that's something that we should take note of. So I'm making this video hoping that it's helpful for somebody out there to hear that you're not alone. And in the comments, I would love for you to let me know what subtle red flag did you not see in early dating. Thanks for watching. I hope this helps.